News out of the NFL where the Bills are promoting offensive coordinator Joe Brady to head coach. That's the latest from our Jonathan Jones. He's been with Buffalo since the 2022 season, serving as the team's OC for the past 2 years. The Bills considered a number of outside candidates, including Brian Daboll, Anthony Lynn, Anthony Weaver, before ultimately deciding to promote from within. That leaves the Cardinals, Browns, and Raiders as the only head coaching openings remaining in the NFL. I'm Tommy Tran with Pete Prisco. Pete, what's your initial reaction to the news that Joe Brady's going to be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills?
Look, I'm not surprised. I think when Josh Allen was involved in the process, I think that told you a lot about where they might be headed. He likes Joe Brady. He likes him a lot. Look, he had a relationship with Brian Daboll as well, but I think Brian Daboll coached him a little differently than Joe Brady did. And this relationship has taken off. So I understand it. Because Joe Brady is the guy he really likes, and he likes working with him, and he likes the offense. So it makes sense for continuity purposes. It makes sense that Josh Allen was in on the interviews, and maybe he ultimately said, hey, look, why don't we just go back to where we were and hire Joe Brady? So I'm concerned a little bit about it, though, in the fact that your quarterback should have input, but should he be sitting in on interviews? I mean, that's something a little bit over the top for me. But Joe Brady and Josh Allen do have that relationship.
And they will be paired together moving forward. A few follow-ups here, Pete. Let's just first start on the field now that Joe Brady is the head coach. What are you anticipating from this offense? Not saying that Sean McDermott obviously had his hands in it, but he would have the final say on key situations, and now that turns and leans on Joe Brady.
Well, and look, I've been one of those people that thinks that the offense has been held back a little bit. And you know how I feel about Josh Allen. I think if Josh Allen plays fast and free and loose, he's a much better player. And people will say he turns the ball over. Well, if you turn the ball over and you throw for 370 yards and 4 touchdowns, who cares? And that's, I think they need to get to that. And it's not just, Buffalo. It's across the league. Teams are scared. They play really conservatively these days, and I think that needs to change. And I think Joe Brady, if you go back and look at his history, when he was at LSU and he had all those weapons, he threw it all over the place. I think they need to get back to that. Look, James Cook's a heck of a back. They ran the ball, and they did a lot of good things. But you don't get chunk plays, and they need to get back to getting chunk plays in the passing game. They need to get a speed receiver, and they need to really let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. And I think that's maybe what Joe Brady will do this year. Because Sean McDermott, he wanted to play good defense, run the ball, and keep the scores down, and that's not necessarily how you play in this league anymore.
We were talking about, again, Josh Allen's input into who the next head coach would be, but just given Terry Pegula, the owner's public comments about the previous coaching staff, which was Sean McDermott, and by extension Joe Brady, did it surprise you that they were going to hire from within?
Well, when you look at it, I think initially they went out and did their due diligence and talked to people and had Joe Brady in the background, and they decided, look, in the end, he's our best candidate. So if you really believe that, then hire him. And it's not like they didn't go through the process. They could have just said, look, we're firing Sean McDermott, we're going to promote Joe Brady, but they didn't do that. So I think they felt good about it. When they went out on the process, and once the process was completed, they came back to it and said, you know what, he is our best candidate. I have no problem with that. I am concerned with the way they play offensive football. I said that before. I didn't think Joe Brady had a great year calling plays. Look, and he's restricted by not having the big play wide receivers, but too often it was run, try a bubble screen, now ask Josh Allen to go make a play. You got to be able to be more aggressive on first down. And I think ultimately he will be. I think that's who he is at his core. And I remember having a conversation with him in the summer. I said, look, you don't have a number 1 wide receiver. What do you do? He goes, we're not worried about it. The ball will get to the right guy. Okay, the ball can get to the right guy, but you'd like that right guy to be 65 yards down the field for a touchdown once in a while, too. And I think that's something they need to pick up in free agency or in the draft.
I only bring it up. Pegula was targeting Keon Coleman, said the staff was pushing for him, which Joe Brady, of course, was on McDermott's staff. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason and, of course, with the upcoming draft. Pete, before I let you go here, guys in the back, can we bring up those head coaching vacancies, which is only have like 3 left now that we have Joe Brady promoted from within? Pete, as you take a look at what Buffalo has in store, Steelers and Bills are only playoff teams on this list. Cap gymnastics will have to be in play. They don't have a lot to spend here. What are your realistic expectations for the Bills with Joe Brady next season?
He'll be right back in the mix again. They have that guy. You know, for people out there saying the window is closed, and look at that free agency list and look at the age of those guys. I mean, of all those guys, how many do you really want back? I mean, I think Connor McGovern you'd like to have back as your center, but the rest of those guys, if they all walked off into the sunset, I don't think you would have a problem with it. So I think age has become an issue on that team. And one thing Sean McDermott did push, he pushed playing veteran players. He didn't like to play the younger players. Well, they drafted a younger corner. He got hurt. He got banged up. He'll be a starting corner next year, Maxwell Hairston. So I think that's what the push is going to be. Younger players get more aggressive on offense. And on defense, look, they started to change the way they played on defense last year. Late in the season, they blitzed more. They played more aggressively. And I think that's something they will do going forward as well. So I think there's going to be changes in structure, changes in strategy. And I have no problem with it. But the Bills will be right back in the mix. And in fact, if you ask me right now, even though New England's in the Super Bowl, I'd probably pick Buffalo to win the division.
That's the early lean from Pete Prisco, who puts our weekly power rankings together during the season. Pete, certainly appreciate it. Thanks for the
Bills promoting offensive coordinator Joe Brady as their next head coach. That's the latest from our Jonathan Jones. He has been with Buffalo since the 2022 season, serving as the team's offensive coordinator for the past 2 years. The Bills considered a number of outside candidates, including Brian Daboll, also Anthony Lynn, Anthony Weaver, but they decided to go and promote Brady within. Here we are at CBS Sports HQ. We got Dana Cannell joining us, Jenny Dell, Tommy Tran, breaking down this breaking news. We knew that there was going to be some more hirings today. Are you surprised by this one?
No, not at all. I think this is one of those moves where you mentioned all those other candidates they had interviewed. It's almost like they kind of had to. And this felt like maybe this was the plan all along when Joe Brady has been with this team. He's got a great relationship with Josh Allen. And so you just want to keep your franchise quarterback as happy as possible. So you go with somebody that he had a strong influence in selecting as the coach. It is a new era that we live in. Franchise quarterbacks have more power than they've ever had before. And I think this is just the latest example of it.
Yeah, did it bother you, Danny? Because some guys like our Pete Prisco were saying guys like Josh Allen, as good as he is, shouldn't have input in these types of things.
Shouldn't be in those
Lee
meetings.
Douzable's on the same side as well.
I am old school as well. Do you want somebody who's best friends with your coach or really likes them and they have a great relationship? Or do you want somebody who's going to be the leader of an organization that's going to lead a locker room full of grown men, not just one player, and have the best relationship with the quarterback, but to command the respect of the locker room? And maybe Joe Brady's able to do that, but this does set up some conflicts of interest when you do see a quarterback who's already the highest paid player on the team, who's already gets all the attention, who always, and this is none of this is Josh Allen's fault. This is just who it is. But then it looks like even more preferential treatment when you let him hand select who the coach is going to be. There is this trend that is unfolding that you see. We have a young quarterback or an established quarterback, and we've got to get a head coach who makes them happy, who actually goes out there and caters to their needs. But look at some of the greater success stories have been coaches who are great football coaches, and whether it's a Mike Vrabel in New England where he goes out and then he hires a great offensive coordinator, you need somebody to set the tone of the organization, not just be your quarterback's best friend.
So when you think about this hire, and it seems like the Bills did their due diligence in talking to other candidates that are out there, do you feel like they got the right guy?
I don't know. I hate grading. Jenny, it's really like, no, I know. But because, you only look foolish if you say, yes, he's going to take him to the Super Bowl, or no, this is an awful decision. I trust that they're going to be competitive because Josh Allen is the quarterback, right? I mean, they're always going to have a chance as long as Josh Allen is healthy. And from that standpoint, it makes sense why you would have somebody go out there. But is he going to help prevent Josh Allen from having a few turnovers in the biggest game of the year? Is he going to be able to defense going that, struggled at times this season? Is he going to go out and draft a wide receiver and build up this roster so that's more competitive? A lot of those questions aren't answered by Joe Brady. Can he operate and function as a head coach? Absolutely. The level of success will just be determined on does he take the Bills to the Super Bowl, because they've reached that plateau and they're asking Joe Brady to take them to the next level, and that remains to be seen.
Yeah, they were a team that were knocking on the door in the divisional round, arguably could have been in the Super Bowl. Of course, they're not. And we have two coaches in the big game that do not have sort of that offensive genius tag around them with Mike Vrabel and, of course, Mike McDonald. But just getting back to this now, Allen and Brady sort of marriage, right? Because now he is going to be the head coach, and Josh Allen will be 30 by the time next season rolls around. Again, offensively synergize our quarterback, Danny? How does that work now when 4th and 1, key decisions, and you have your head coach who leads offense?
I don't think there's that going to be, you're not going to see that much change offensively, right? I mean, I think you'll still see the coach and the quarterback come to a collaborative decision of when we think we should go for it, what style of system are we going to run this week, because game plans do vary significantly week to week. What I'm more curious of is Joe Brady. Does he still call the offensive plays? Does he relinquish that role? Because Tommy, I'm more worried about what is he going to do in other situations when the defense is struggling, or when they have a special teams decision that they have to make, or when the team starts losing and they have a 2-game losing stretch or a 3-game losing stretch. How does he command the locker room and get them to respond to adversity? Or if they start the season 10-0, how do they handle success? Those sort of big picture culture questions and, dealing with success, dealing with adversity, those to me are some of the critical components that make up a head coach's job. We already know what we're going to get from Joe Brady with the offense. It's going to be very similar. I don't think you'll see many strategic changes at all, but how does the team respond to Joe Brady as the head of the franchise is the biggest question.
And how does a team respond in the postseason? Are they finally going to get over the hump? That's, I think, what all the Bills fans want to know right now. Danny Cannell on the latest hiring, Joe Brady, your next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Taking a look at the candidates right here. There were 10 openings. Right now, 3 remain. I just had to count it to make sure because that just seems like a crazy number. So right now, we're still waiting on the Raiders, the Browns, and the Cardinals, but we can say Joe Brady is going to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills.